I am Halli Casser-Jayne, and welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a podcast akin to the great salons of times past. Pour yourself a martini, grab a spot on your favorite sofa, and listen to the great artists, writers, politicians, and celebrities of our day discuss and debate the current political and economic scene, art and music, film, literature, or maybe talk about the newest trends in fashion, design, and haute cuisine. Whether it's the current political cocktail or the latest must-read, award-winning book, we tackle all topics and like to stir and sometimes shake things up. On this episode of the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, it's Podcast America, our weekly politics segment in which veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper and I slice and dice the current political landscape as we near November 6th and the midterm elections. Stay tuned and enjoy the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Let's get to it. From Charlottesville to Pittsburgh to November 6th in the 2018 midterm elections, Matt and I want to welcome you to Podcast America. On this episode, we take a look at the state of our nation 6 days out from the 2018 midterm elections. A little bit about journalist and veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper. Matthew Cooper is known for his in-depth reporting and analysis from Washington, D.C. Mr. Cooper has worked for some of America's most prestigious magazines, including Time, Newsweek, The New Republic, National Journal, and U.S. News and World Report. He now serves as a contributing editor to Washingtonian magazine. For the record, Cooper also earned national attention during the CIA leak case when he was held in contempt of court and threatened with imprisonment for his refusal to name his sources and to testify before the grand jury regarding the Valerie Plame CIA leak investigation, a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. He's appeared on 60 Minutes, Meet the Press, Hardball, and This Week with George Stephanopoulos. He has covered Donald Trump extensively. His hard-hitting and insightful profiles of the Donald, always well worth the read. And now, from Charlottesville to Pittsburgh and the state of our nation on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. I hope you enjoy. Okay, Matt, we begin this week, and here's where we are. We are 6 days, 20 hours, 16 minutes, 55 seconds from voting day. Oh my God, election day. Can you believe that?
It's hard to believe.
It has gone quickly.
Really? Because to me it feels like it's been forever. I feel like this campaign's gone on a long time.
You think? To me,
of course, the presidential starts in 8 days.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, there's that too. There is absolutely that too. But, to me, it's so crazy out there. What a crazy week in America. 2 stories led the news, but in some ways, they're really just one. Let's start with Cesar Sayoc, or however. By the way, Florida. Here we go. Florida. You know what Florida is, Matt? Florida is what
It's where you live.
Yeah, it's where I live. It's also and where I used to live, L.A., in the 60s. The same kind of lunacy that when I remember L.A., all those years of crazy.
Sure.
Now it's down here. It's in the air. Cesar Sayoc, Florida resident, the Magabomber. Trump-obsessed Republican targets 2 presidents and Democratic leaders and sends them bombs. And what do we get from Trump camp? No big deal. Talk to me.
Well, yeah, this is, it's incredibly disturbing. I mean, this guy is, ineptly, but nevertheless did try to, kill a lot of people. A lot of prominent officials, 2 former presidents, their spouses, which included former U.S. Senator and Secretary of State, sitting members of Congress, persons in the media and intelligence leaders. So it's deeply disturbing, and it's extremely fortunate no one got hurt and that this guy was not better at doing what he intended to do. But that shouldn't be much of a consolation. And clearly the guy is deranged. At the same time, he was responding to signals that have been sent by the
By Trump.
By Trump, if that was the word I was looking for, Trump. I mean, look, his van is the van of a sick guy, but he's also the van of a guy who's been listening to what's out there. And look, I think this whole question of causation is sort of it's a red herring in the sense that you can't blame Trump for what this guy did or the shooter, but you can blame them for, hateful words.
Ginning up.
And that will gin up the unstable. Now, look, 2 assassins tried to kill Gerald Ford, who's about as mild-mannered a president as we'll ever have. So it's not, obviously, it's not the president's fault per se when they get shot at or if there's a crazy person out there, but it's clearly, Trump's words are
mean something.
Heard. They mean something. We've always known that. Presidential words mean something. Hateful voices can lead to hateful actions. And, I think we see now there's really no sign that he'll change.
Well, he doesn't. He's not going to change. He's getting worse. But let me take it here, and I want to ask your opinion on this, because, of course, we know who Trump is. We know the game, and we're going to discuss the game in the next hour, because it's a game, as far as I'm concerned. This guy, life is a game. That being said, what concerns me about this was not so much, it was horrible what happened, yada, 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 but his followers will lie, cheat, steal, connive, anything they need to do to make the story work for Trump. How many said, oh, no, the bombs didn't go off. It doesn't mean anything. It meant nothing. All of this was just nothing.
Well, first they said, first some of them said it was liberals.
Well, okay, and this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
Trump will be gone, Matt, but they aren't going anywhere. Are they going to morph back to some kind of sanity? Or do we have a chunk of America that truly has lost it? That frightens me. Yeah,
and the short answer is I don't think we know. I was talking to a scholar the other night, just to run into, who was more optimistic, who talked about McCarthy and how after McCarthy, the Army McCarthy hearings in the 50s, his stock really plummeted, and not much long after that, he was censured by the Senate, and was in a sanitarium, and
obviously wind up in a sanitarium.
No, obviously the presidency is different than being the senator, but this person's point was, and I don't know if they're right or wrong, but it was interesting. Their point was that, when the fever breaks, it really breaks, and there won't be a lot of Trumpism without Trump. Now, I don't know if that's true. We're seeing globally a lot of Trump-style candidates, right? Now Brazil is led by a very Trumpian guy. So, maybe it's bigger than one man.
I think it's a question that's well worth talking about. And so I'm glad that we could do that. We go to the next thing that happened, which is this just horrid Tree of Life Synagogue in Squirrel Hill, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh suburb, probably one of the most well-known Jewish communities still in existence. Just a beautiful place, beautiful people. I have friends there. Wow. Anti-Semitism is alive and kicking, and it's always been alive and kicking as far as I'm concerned. You may have a different point of view. But this character, this Robert Bowers, who is not a Trumpian, although he certainly brought in the migrants as part of the issue, so maybe he is Trumpian in one way, goes in and mows down, what is that rifle, his thing called an AK something or other, they're all, horrible. They should be in Baghdad, not here. Guns. And shoots up and kills 11 poor souls. And what happened after that is what is interesting to me. We can have a conversation about his anti-Semitism alive and kicking, that's fine. But I think the response by Trump and by that community and by Mr. Pence are worth looking at. So let's start with Trump. You play historical and you give us the little background of how he responded to all of this.
Well, Trump's initial comments to reporters were to lament the shooting. He did sort of quickly go into, maybe if they'd been better armed, they could have stopped this guy. But of course, the guy shot a policeman too. There were armed personnel on the scene anyway, and we've had shootings at military facilities, and that hasn't necessarily stopped a determined and crazed shooters. So I'm not sure there was a lot to that comment, and seemed weirdly ill-timed, to say the least. And look, he went on to do some fairly explicit denunciations of anti-Semitism, but, by the next day, he was kind of back to just attacking people. I don't even know if it was the next day. It might have been the same night. And, of course, unlike... I think when asked if he was going to put off his rally that night, he said, well, no, I'm going to go ahead. And, the New York Stock Exchange stayed open during 9/11, which wasn't true. And they didn't. In fact, they closed for a week.
He's inept. He's inept at what is arguably, really, the number one reason we have a president, to console and to be there and to bring the country and unite and unify. And calm?
Yeah. It's clearly so different than any president in memory, really. It's been pointed out a lot, but, in any moment of national crisis, almost every president has risen to the occasion, Republican and Democrat. And it's just, I leave it to the psychiatrist to try to explain.
You know what? I don't think we should be leaving it to the psychiatrist. I'm going to say to you that I think at this point with some of the stuff, and as we go along, some of what's gone on this week, really makes one question, who is this human being who's sitting, as the highest, office holder in the world, running the world. And I don't think he's all right. Can I bring in his kids now, though? Can I bring in Ivanka and Jared? Jared, born a Jew, Ivanka converted, raising their children as Jewish.
Right.
The president likes to let us know that every time something weird happens around Judaism. I bring this up because something weird did happen that day. I didn't see any ink on, but they say that they are from, which means they're highly religious, and they belong to a very, very, the same temple that Joe Lieberman belongs to, very, very, high Judaism. And yet she was tweeting. I thought that was odd.
Yeah. Look, the whole thing has been, odd. The president was tweeting about the World Series. But
I can see him doing, we expect, but she was not supposed to do anything with technology for during Shabbat. And
you can pre-program those.
But that wasn't pre-programmed. She was responding to.
She was responding. Yeah.
And I just thought, nobody brought that up, and that's just, who are these people? What are they really about, right?
Yeah.
Then he shows up today as we are speaking, as we are recording. He is in Pittsburgh. He was asked not to go to Pittsburgh by officials there. I think the mayor of Pittsburgh and the governor thought the timing was off because in Judaism you bury very quickly. The burials began today. And
they needed a lot of police resources for the burials. The families are obviously indisposed at the funerals. They asked him to wait, and I think he took that as a challenge. So there he is. Ahead. There he is. So there he is. Obviously the president has the right to go where he wants, but it's sort of so unbecoming. It's just it's one more thing that just
makes you wonder. And there was a little palace intrigue because the White House tried to get Schumer and Pelosi to go. Did you read that part? That was kind of weird. And the two of them were like, "No, I don't think we're doing that." But they on the other side, they tried to get the other two. And they were like shaming each other, and they all threw up their hands and said, "No, we're not touching this with a 10-foot pole." Yes.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think anyone wanted to be near this when he was going there.
I think that's always interesting, and it's one of the rare times that you see both sides. Whatever.
Yeah.
Let me bring Mike Pence into this because I'm going to tell you something. I don't think I've ever been angrier ever at a politician and at a situation as I was. I was horrified. Of course, I'm Jewish. Matt's Jewish. We take this kind of thing personally for sure. But Pence goes to Michigan to campaign for a Republican candidate who is Jewish, Lena Epstein. And Michigan's I think it's the 11th congressional district. And he invites a Messianic and I'm going to put in quote rabbi because you can't be Jewish and be Messianic and believe in Jesus. Right. For those who don't understand, to make remarks. And hear me, speechless. This is how I'm privileged to be joined today by a leader of the Jewish community here in Michigan who's kind enough to join us today. I thought it might be appropriate if Rabbi Lauren Jacobs would come out from Shema Israel Synagogue and offer a word of prayer for the fallen, for their families, and for our nation, he said during the rally. I tell you what, and then he invoked Jesus in discussing it.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Well,
You can't.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. I mean, Pence has been in politics a long time. He's twice elected governor of Indiana. It's hard to believe he would, I think, would knowingly make such a misstep, but you never know.
He knew. He's a religious man.
No, he is religious.
He's a born-again Christian.
He is indeed.
They know.
Well, look, it was clearly, I think that, the movement of converted Christians, under the guise of Messianic Jews is something that's been kind of disturbing in the Jewish community, sort of seen as an attempt to kind of, stealthily recruit
of course
Jews, and it's kind of deeply unsettling in the best of circumstances, let alone a week like this. So it hit a very raw nerve, and
rightfully so. But it brings. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt.
I'm sure if you're Sheldon Nadel.
Here's the deal. The deal is that I don't think anybody really understands Mike Pence. I mean, I'm sure the Republicans do. We still have to say, how did he get there into the job that he got? And we know that he was brought in by, what's his name, who's sitting in jail right now. Help me out. My brain just died.
Manafort.
Manafort is who insisted that he be the vice presidential candidate. This guy is not he is not the wonderful guy that everybody thinks he is. And he's in bed with one of the worst human beings on the face of the earth as far as I'm concerned. And that says something about who this Mike Pence person is. I bring all of this up and we can go back and I think we should at some point really take on the issue of anti-Semitism. But does the right have an anti-Semitism problem, Matt? Trump calls himself a nationalist. Land of Lakes just pulled the support of Representative Steve King because his cozying up with, the right nationalists. There's a lot of white nationalists, white supremacists in this party. Now the left has its problems too, let me be fair. I wrote extensively about Obama in 2008 with Reverend Wright and Louis Farrakhan. Farrakhan called Jews termites last week, and you got a lot of Democrats standing with him. So it's not strictly a right problem, but it's a lot on the right. And they're in power, so it's really. And we know there's an upswing in anti-Semitism. I'm going to shock you, although you probably read some of the stuff that I wrote years ago about this, and I said that I thought the uptick came out of Obama because he let the genie out of the bottle when he started talking about Israel, etc. But not to take it too far out on a limb, I began with, does the right have an anti-Semitism problem?
Well, I think it's complicated. I don't think... I certainly don't think it's true for the bulk of, Republican voters or Republican office holders. I think the question is when you get closer to, when the president, uses these kind of
tropes,
tropes, about George Soros or globalists,
right,
or international bankers or whatever he's been using. That is definitely read by super anti-Semites as a green light, and it's read by Jews as a bonfire, and it might pass over the heads of a lot of people, but for those groups, it's especially a bright light, either ominous or light of consent. So, look, I think Steve King has basically described himself as a white nationalist. He's talked about immigration in those terms as kind of a race war. I don't know what he's said about Jews, but I don't need to know, given what he said about Hispanics. It's so odious. I don't know whether he got around to Jews, I mean, there is a rise in anti-Semitism. I don't think the president's done anything to really discourage it enough. And so we're in a bad place. But I guess I'm a little more reluctant to sort of blame the right than maybe you are.
It's very interesting to me. I mean, the president made a decision that he was going to go with his base. When he got elected, he could have said, hello, the world, we love you. We love all of America. Come join the train. Get on my train. Let's work together. He didn't do that. He calculated very oddly that he was going to keep this small base of his, and that was going to be how he was going to then win in the future. The math is so weird on that. I never quite understood what he was thinking. Maybe you do. But I know a lot of the areas of the country and have lived in many of them. The wandering Jew, that's always there. That anti-Semitism is there in that part of in those parts of rural America. It just is there. They're not as quick to catch up with the rest of the world. They don't meet people who are different than they are. So, it's kind of a built-in deal kind of thing. So I'll never understand the thinking, but there you go, and maybe I'll drop it there because I can almost feel you getting nervous on the other end, going, "Leave me out. I'm tired. I don't want to talk about this anymore."
Look, I'm not downplaying that. Anti-Semitism exists, and the disturbing and dramatic rise in documented hate crime incidents is particularly disturbing. I just don't know where I'm not sure it totally resides on the right. I mean, as you said. Well, I said that, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't totally reside. I mean, I don't think your basic average congressional Republican is giving a green light to anti-Semitism. But to the degree they're using this, they choose to use Soros. Right. Then I think they are. And the fact that Kevin McCarthy, the number 2 Republican in the House, dropped his tweet about Bloomberg and Soros. Forgot who the star, whoever the third one was. Yeah, with Stiles. Yeah. So, look, it's a problem. The president is making it worse with this rhetoric. I was deeply heartened by the kind of national response to Pittsburgh. And, it's kind of up to everyone to try
That's interesting that you said that there are. Yeah, that's interesting that you said that because there were a number of correspondents on the news who were saying, I don't get this. I don't understand why it's not bigger than it is. It's not massive enough. I heard a number of people on cable, anchors feeling very freaked out that it wasn't getting the due that it gets. Let's move on. Unless you have something really brilliant to say, which you always do.
No. Only when I listen to you or repeat you.
No. So listen to me. So the next thing that comes to my mind is this migrant situation. Matt, this is really, this is Trump 101, and the press just goes along with him. If they didn't take pictures of what happens every day, by the way, down there, we wouldn't have what we have, I think. So I'm kind of annoyed with the press for going there. But I do want to bring this up. It's a wag the dog. Now he's sending down 5,200 troops to the border. 5,200 troops from regular army, not from the reserves. And they're saying it's because they have to, they can move them faster than they could the reserves, pulling them together. And then you have people, guests on Lou Dobbs' show saying that the migrants are bringing in polio and smallpox, which hasn't even been in existence.
It's unbelievable. And of course, the Pittsburgh shooter thought that.
Right, because this is what he's listening to Fox. And, first Trump is crazy, then Fox is crazy. But whatever they start out with, they always start out with 5,000, 7,000 of these people who are people trying to make their way up from, Latin America and Central America. These are people who are 5'2" tall. They're mestizos. They're part Indian. They're the poorest of the poor. They've got their kids. Their husbands are walking in front of them. The wives, as they do, are walking behind because that's how society is there. The cameras come in. They take pictures of these poor guys who are really, like I said, they're migrants. They're poor, pathetic mestizos. There are more troops right now than there are people, or at least you can say there's one troop to every little 5'2" Mexican or Salvadoran or Guatemalan. Right. It's insane. Right.
Yeah. Well, look, I've got a few thoughts. I mean, one is, as you said, Trump and Fox and others have demagogued this thing. Look, they've demonized these people. They've created lies about how they're Middle Easterners, and there's Al Qaeda in there, and Al Qaeda needs to fly to Guatemala and march up is the best way to go. It doesn't really seem like the best way here, and that's crazy, and it's designed to stir fears, and it's idiotic, and it's awful, and it comes, of course, in the wake of the parent-child separations that went on, all year that, have been so horrible.
And now threatening to do that again, by the way. So
yeah, and it's really awful,
right?
And it's not proving a deterrent to people who want to come. I will say, I think the Democratic response has been inadequate.
Agree.
It's not enough. I don't think it's enough to just say, the caravan's far away, and which a lot of them keep saying. They keep saying, it's 2,000 miles away. Oh, it's 1,000 miles away. It's 500 miles away. The fact is that, we have a border. There is a big increase in people seeking asylum.
No, actually, it's coming down. It's much lower than it was 3 years ago.
Right, but we had that big surge, when a lot of Central Americans came in that way. Look, all I'm saying is the Democratic response should be like, this is an issue, here's how we should take care of it. But they're just sort of denouncing Trump. They're not really offering a good...
Because it seems to me that's the thing. And that's something that I have on my list to say to you. I mean, bottom line seems to me, Matt, this is a campaign on the Democratic side about Trump and not the issues. It's not like the first time we've talked about that. We've said that before, but it does seem now more than ever that this is about that. This is a race about bad boy Trump. So they don't get into issues per se.
Right, but I agreed with David Frum in the Atlantic, who said that look, I mean, if Americans see people marching towards the border, they're gonna, and if they see fascists doing the job that liberals won't, they're gonna let the fascists do the job. In other words, if Democrats need to, I think, sort of have a robust and humane and sensible plan for how to deal with this, and instead, I think all they've done is just sort of either poo-poo it and say it's not really a problem, or just denounce Trump. And to me, that's inadequate.
Right, and I think it's a choice too. Though I was reading something today about how they're handling Scott Walker, who was the governor of Wisconsin, who came in like a bat out of hell, and he's going out badly. And that the way that they're getting rid of Walker, who has done some really horrific, oh my God, things in that state, just strip the state of everything. So the Republicans don't even like him anymore because there's nothing left for them. He's made the government not even in existence, so to speak. And their way of dealing with him is not to go after him on the issues, but kind of to take this backward kind of laissez-faire, like, that's Scott Walker, we got to let him go, and not nail him to the cross, which they could do if they wanted to, because of some of this idiocy that he's done to that state.
Yeah.
And I think that's how the Dems are handling the big guys, who are in control of all of this.
But I worry that the Dems don't take the immigration issue more seriously. They're gonna pay a price, and I think
you mean in the election, or you mean after the election?
Well, maybe in the election, but I think in the future. I mean, we've seen the potency of this issue around the world,
right?
Especially in Europe. Merkel's on her way out,
right?
I think the Democrats need something more than just kind of falling back on their standard position of kind of amnesty for people who are here already.
I agree. I totally
strengthen the border. I mean,
take a stand. Take a stand.
There ought to be a real, they should move the processing of the refugee claims to Mexico City and do it there.
I absolutely agree with you, and I think it's a big, big, big mistake. And when they don't fill in the gap, then Trump and his team fill in the gap, so that you hear things like this all over Twitter. There are two lines that they keep using over, and I told you before we went on the air today that the brain's not 100%. But, that they keep going back because there's a hole there. So they say, they want to open borders. Democrats want open borders. Well, Democrats don't want open borders, but they're not saying anything specific to say no. Oh, and Democrats want to abolish ICE.
Democrats are not sending a signal they take
and they're not fighting back.
And illegals seriously.
Right.
I think
like I said, I'm getting the feeling, and you've been around this game a long time, that the Dems' whole thing is, let's not make waves. We've got, except for a blue wave, and let's just kind of let it go now, and let them handle it on each individual race, and let's not make this let's denationalize it while the Republicans are trying, or Trump is trying to nationalize it. You were listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. My guest today is veteran White House correspondent and contributing editor to Washingtonian magazine, Matthew Cooper, my co-host on Podcast America. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to find me on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on all your favorite apps. You can find the Halli Casser-Jayne Show on your Alexa device, too. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at the Halli CJ Show. Speaking of which, Trump trying to nationalize it, there's something else I want to talk about. I want to talk about Trump dangling another shiny object. He's the master at dangling shiny objects, and the press is the master at going after the shining object. So today's shiny object was, and this, by the way, goes hand in hand with anti-Semitism and black-brown hatred from the right. But he says, I'm going to end birthright citizenship. Do you know what Lindsey Graham said? Did you hear what he said?
No, what did he say?
He went absolutely bonkers. He says he's going to introduce legislation to end birthright citizenship. Now Pence says the Trump citizenship plan might not interfere with the Constitution. You're the constitutionalist among the two of us, so we know that that's not true. I say that it's, Matt, that here's the Republicans' solution to make America white again, because the courts haven't been helping them out. This is America First, shades of Lindbergh. But Lindsey, who I'll put that out there. Then I'll throw out the real killer, because he's off his friggin' rocker, and I think he deserves some time. But none of this is going to happen any more than what was the other thing that he said this week, Trump? That he was going to have a tax cut for the middle class. Take it away, darling.
Well, I look. It is. I think Ryan did push back today on it.
Yeah, but who cares? He's leaving tomorrow.
But who cares? He's leaving. Right. Exactly. So look, this has been kind of stirring on the right for a while about can people just show up here and have a baby? The whole idea of anchor babies, right? But it's pretty clear in the 14th Amendment that, if you're born here...
which every other country in the world that's a democratic country has.
Yeah, well, that's what most countries do. Now, there's the language of the 14th Amendment's a little ambiguous in some parts because it says, if you're born here and you're subject to the laws, but most people interpret that as just meaning like if a foreign diplomat's kid was born here, that wouldn't make them an American. Or it was also done originally to exclude Native Americans. But it was definitely, done with slaves in mind to give them citizen rights. And it seems, and the, courts have ruled over the years that extends to immigrants in various forms. It's hard to believe the courts would in any way back Trump on this, let alone via an executive order.
But it doesn't matter because it's full of crap. That's my point.
Well, it's full of crap, but it's not inconceivable it goes to the courts. It's not inconceivable that.
You don't think he'll drop this in a heartbeat the minute this election is over?
Oh, I think he likes it. No, I don't think. You
think he's going to take this one out for a spin and see how far he can get?
See how it goes. Yeah, I mean, I think and I think it's just such a dangerous idea. The idea of telling people who are here that they're not citizens. I mean, taking away citizenship rights from people en masse. I mean, that is what the Nuremberg laws were in Germany. I mean, the idea when you suddenly declare a group, they're no longer citizens.
Don't you wonder why the Republicans just sit there and twiddle their thumbs and when he does this kind of crap and says, "Oh, that's Trump," whatever.
Yeah.
It's just
I think that's their whatever.
It's so odd. The next tax cut. It's so absolutely, utterly odd. Okay, next thing. We're moving forward. Let me check my notes out because I got a lot of stuff in here I want to talk about. I don't want to miss anything good. Okay, so So the Hispanic vote, I want to talk about that briefly. I did a little homework this week. I talked to some canvassers here in my area. Now, where I am is Trump country. I want to tell you two things. One is I never saw a Hillary sign anywhere the entire election. And I will tell you that there are Gillum signs everywhere. Everywhere. I am shocked. So that's a good thing. The Hispanic community here is way west because they do all the agricultural work. I had friends go out and canvass there. And I wasn't sure what we were going to get, but here's what they came back with. Everybody is voting for Nelson and for Gillum. They are done with Trump. Now, that's a small selection of people, because it's a small little rural area. But that's what they're doing. Now, they're not telling everybody, and they're not talking to everybody because they're afraid, because out there you got a lot of people who are there illegally. But that's the takeaway. But I see that Democrats are hoping to pump up the Latino. They're finally releasing Spanish language television ads on Tuesday that are airing in 5 states. And I don't know. I saw one of them. It's good. You think they can pull it off, or you go back to what we said last week, which is these people are afraid to leave their homes. They're going to get taken in by ICE.
Yeah, I just, I don't know. I mean, I think I can totally see why, they'd be mobilized and ready to go against Trump and out there. But he did come in a little stronger with Hispanics in 2016 than I would have thought, given everything he had said about Mexicans as rapists.
Right. That scares me.
So he still did. He didn't, he was nowhere up near sort of like Bush 2000 levels, but he did better than you would have thought. And so I just don't know. I mean, I tend to think, there's going to be a big Hispanic boost, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as much jet fuel as sort of suburban women.
But can they need it in certain pockets without it?
Oh, yeah, they need it. Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to do it to get Sinema and Rosen over, elected to the Senate in Arizona and Nevada. They definitely need it. We're just going to see. It's another fail on their part. Yeah, I mean, if Democrats didn't put the resources into it and aren't really working to get them out, I mean, if you said that Spanish language only went up now, that's pretty late. Crazy. That's it. And they're flush with money everywhere, so I'm not sure why, but there you go. Yeah. 180 degrees. Let's talk Shep Smith for a minute. Boy, he's got balls. Yeah, you got to admire the guy. I mean, that's really can't be easy to be the one of the few sane people over there. I mean, I think I watch his show pretty often. I mean, he's a good broadcaster. He's a wonderful broadcaster, and he's really gone out on a limb, and they let him go out on a limb, which I find incredibly interesting. And wonder why they're letting him go out, and he's getting the crap beat out of him by his fellow, they're not journalists. Yeah, the nighttime. Yeah, right. the crazy crew. But I had to give Shep. We're shouting you out because good for you. Whether I agree with you all the time or I don't agree with you, at least you're telling the truth, and that's on Fox. That's something to say. So I just mentioned nationalizing the elections, and I think we need to have a discussion about that, about state, because this is going to be. This is about state. I think the Democrats set it up like that. It's not sexy, to keep it on a local level, but they feel that the House can be run on the local level truly without making it. And where they've nationalized it, it's gotten dicey. So I think their point is well proven. We could talk about that in terms of Nelson and Scott. Oy. Right. Well, this is an oy. Well, here's what I'm going to say to you. I'm going to say to you that, Bill Nelson is the worst campaigner I've ever seen in my whole entire life. It's really sad. And I think he's old and he's tired. He came today, he compared U.S. tensions to pre-genocide Rwanda. I don't know whether that just flew out of his mouth, whether that was the smart thing to say, the dumb thing to say. I assume he said Rwanda because he's thinking black vote and he needs Gillum to win so he can win because that's the only way he's going to win. But he's not doing a job. I will tell you that the people who I've been working with who are, in the Democratic Party who are going out, who I've talked to,
They say we want to go out and we'll take Gillum stuff and we're going to push it around. But do you have anything for Nelson? I want to push him because I don't think he's going. Things are good for him. Yeah.
Well, maybe Gillum can pull him over the finish line.
Well, that's the only way he will get. That's why I thought. I mean, the Republicans took that Rwanda line and ran with it like lunatics today. But I know it didn't just pop out of Nelson's mouth. Somebody wrote it, and I'm sure that they wrote it because they want to get gin up the black vote.
Yeah.
To do it, and that's not something that goes in character with Bill Nelson. So I thought it was well worth talking about. And since we're on that path, let me bring up Obama because I've been very angry with him.
Right. So how do you feel now?
I feel a little better. He put up.
Feel like he's doing a good job. He's pretty feisty.
Yeah, he pulled up his shirt sleeves. And, the old smile and the little twinkle in the eye came out. And I think he's been going to town, and I'm thrilled to death that he's doing that. And I think it makes a difference. I am still saying that, though, the press is not covering him properly. They're actually giving more press to Joe Biden than they are to Obama, who, by the way, can I just say this? This is a girly thing to say, maybe. Forgive me for saying a girly thing. No, it's a girly thing. It's because a guy, you as a pundit aren't going to. Biden does not look good.
Really?
He doesn't even look like Joe Biden.
You think he's had some work done? I mean, that kind of thing?
I can't figure out whether he had work done or he needs to have work
I think he probably, he was a very early
handsome
hair plug.
Yeah, but he was also a handsome guy in person, guys. If you've never been he's like, oh my God, to die for a good look. His eyes look weird. His face doesn't look like Joe Biden to me. So it's a girl thing.
Interesting, but your Botox detector didn't go off.
Well, I can't. He actually doesn't look well to me, so it's hard to say whether it was a Botox or whether it was a mini facelift or something. But he doesn't. His coloring is not his coloring. His face looks thin to me. And I'm a big, I've spent some time with this man, and I just used to stare at and by the way, Bill Clinton's another one. In his best days, was ridiculously handsome in person,
right?
And didn't look a thing like he looks on TV. And both of those men are that way. And he looks old now. Whether it's the effect of his kid dying and all that trauma that he went through, I don't know. But he doesn't look good to me, and I'm just putting it out there. So
interesting. So
have a look, and you'll come back next week, and you'll tell me what you think. So tell me this: what's on the ballot next week? Trump hate the Constitution. What are we voting on here?
Oh gosh, yeah. I think Trump is just so dominates the news and people's dinner tables. I mean, I know he doesn't. Obviously, there's a whole areas of life that don't involve Trump, but he so dominates politics. I can't believe that he's not sort of the foremost question, especially if you're voting for Congress. I think the end of some of these like Republican runs in places like Ohio and Wisconsin since 2010 when they came in during the financial crisis, and so things were really shitty, and then they got reelected in 2014, because things were better by 2014, and now those, Republican governors are kind of running their course. So I think you could see Democrats taking over in Ohio, Maine, Michigan, Wisconsin, a lot of big states, and Florida, of course, and
this is a governor's race. I think that the most Americans don't understand that if the Dems are really poised to pick up a lot of governor seats, and that's going to make a huge difference in what maybe not right away.
Because 2010 was a big wave, and they rode it for 8 years,
right?
And now they're going to ride it out.
Yeah, it's interesting. I also want to bring this up and put this in perspective as to what. Oh no, a little humor. I want to do a little humor.
We need it.
Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle, who I call the Chiclets, because both of them, when they smile, it's an ad for Chiclets. If for those who don't remember Chiclets, but they're little square pieces of gum. And those two of them have the worst cap jobs of any two people in the world.
They look very cappy. Yeah, they look cappy. I just still cannot believe she was married to the man
I know.
who's going to be governor of California.
I mean, go figure. And what a relationship. Go look on Google and Google the two of them. Some of the pictures are really, oh my God, to die for pictures between sexy. But anyway, they have a new ad out. Urging Republicans to stand up to the mainstream media and quote-unquote liberal mob ahead of next week's midterm elections. In the short video spot released by America First, I love America First, that makes me nervous. Guilfoyle joined after leaving Fox. The two urge every patriot, and that's what I wanted to say, every patriot in the country to vote Republican. I just went nuts when I saw this thing. I just thought, again, it's the same old thing. It's the same old dog whistling. Only Republicans are patriots, and they're white.
Yeah. Well, she's Hispanic.
Well, she is, but they don't like you to know that.
All right. Look, the kid. I think Don Jr. wants to be president. He really likes being out there.
Yeah, let's have Don Jr. and a lion's head.
I mean, he's Trump without the smarts and the charm. I mean,
this is just like he really got the worst of both of his parents. I got to tell you.
I mean, look, I don't know. He just seems like a really dopey guy.
He doesn't. He's. I don't know. It's like. He just didn't get it, and that happens, and the other one, Eric, I can't figure him out altogether. He's just kind of like, roll the eyes. Okay, another story breaking just as we were coming in here was Mueller is accusing opponents of offering women money to make false claims about him, and he actually referred it to the FBI. He is ticked off about this. First time he's broken his cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is by all accounts, a very proprietous guy. I mean, he's not going to screw around with something like that.
I'm shocked that he took this public. I really am. But he has a reason for doing it. So I think that's interesting. I mean, really.
Well, he may have known someone was going to write about it. Or, there are enough dubious outlets that would go with it.
Well, they approached some regular old journalists to try and, pay... to see if they could pay him, the girl. It's a weird story, and I wanted to bring it up, because I think it's out of character in a way for Mueller. So that had me, my antenna went up on that. Why did he get so ticked off about this? It was that he was a womanizer and alcohol was involved. There you go. So he nipped it in the bud right away. Okay, before we go into the state of the race. Lindsey Graham, who has gone off his rocker since Mr. McCain is gone. Agreed.
Well, it's, he's always nursed the image of himself as Mr. Reasonable. And,
where? No more.
Yeah, I mean, with, certainly with immigration and climate change and other things, but he's swung the other way, full stop.
He's full Trump, elf.
He's been going full MAGA.
I call him elf.
I don't really have an explanation on the birthright thing. I mean, he's a lawyer. He knows
better.
JAG. He should at least know that this is a at best a debatable proposition.
So let me take you.
I don't know. So
I'm going to quote him.
He wants to be Attorney General?
Oh, come on! I mean, what for? Let me. This could be our next Attorney General. I'm quoting him. He said, "You can kiss my ass, all of you folks on the left. You can kiss my ass, Lindsey Graham."
Well, that sounds like someone auditioning to be Trump's. Sounds like something would appeal to the president.
I'm going to throw up. At one point, I actually said one of the saner Republicans who they might run for president was Lindsey Graham, and I recommended him to people on my right who were looking for a Republican to go for Lindsey Graham. Oh, was I wrong?
Well, it's a long way from going up to look at climate change in the Arctic with John McCain and Hillary Clinton.
God. Anyway, it's that story's not over. There's a lot to come out of him. All right, let's look at the race. I want to bring up Beto O'Rourke. Right now they say public polls are saying. So the insider polls are something different because I see how the Democrats are playing it, and it's a lot tighter than I think anybody believes. Right now, today, it was 5 points between them, which is really within the statistical whatever. I think it may be tighter than that.
Could be. I mean, the modeling, you need a model to do a poll, and you have to sort of guess who's coming to the party, and you just don't know. I think it's one of those years you don't really know who's coming to the party. I mean, I would guess, just given Texas, it's going to be tough for him to close the gap. But
are you surprised that he's only 5 points different right now? And you're a week out?
I frankly, given all the money and the hype, I would have thought it would be even a little bit closer. So, we'll see how he does. I mean, I think I said here, I think he's going to run for president, whether he wins.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. So, absolutely.
This will not be Beto's last stand.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Speaking of that model, somebody said to me the other day, and I thought it was it made a lot of sense. Everybody's afraid to put out these statistics and these poll numbers because of what happened in 2016. But the fact of the matter is, 2016 was right on national numbers.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at it from that point of view right now, you shouldn't be so afraid to play those numbers that you're playing right now. So, I think that's a really good point. Stacey Abrams is edging out Kemp. Thank you, former President Carter.
Yeah. I mean, if...
Opened up a mouth. I was surprised.
I don't know. I mean, if there's not enough, voting irregularities to throw it, that stuff is really unsettling. I mean, look, she's proven to be a good candidate. As with O'Rourke, I think it may be tough to close the gap, but I don't know. I mean,
I don't know either. I just I can't get the sense right now whether it is a blue wave or whether it's quiet Republicans are still voting Republicans. Republican, or more of them are voting than Democrats or whatever. It's
I think if Kemp and DeSantis and Cruz weren't so odious. I mean, I think there might be,
it might have been different.
These might have been pretty, I just
but then we're talking about the Senate, which was always going to be a hard pull,
right?
Anyway, so or the governor's race, but I will tell you this: DeSantis is a creep. I mean, he is a creepy dude. And this Gillum, God bless him, we got to talk about him. Trump calls him a thief, another dog whistle.
Oh, but he had the best reply to Trump about how weak he is.
I mean, he could be the next president if this thing doesn't get into a mess on, his $100 ticket to go see the...
Yeah, if it's... Yeah,
or they don't take him out because of his best friend...
Two mezzanine seats away from the presidency.
I mean... I'm going to use that in tweets.
Yeah.
That's one of your better ones. I mean, he is a genius. Today he said, I don't lie down with pigs. I mean, shades of what he's quick on the draw.
A lot of these guys they don't know how to respond to Trump.
Right. And this one does. And wouldn't that just be too funny if in 2020 Trump really did have to go up against a black man? What would that be like? How insane would that be? Let's move it up.
I think it would make Kenya look like,
or Rwanda,
like a League of Women voters debate. I mean, I just think Trump would just, I don't know what we'd be subject to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a really interesting race to watch. That's for sure. The only other news before we finish on the election, because I want to ask you about a couple of things, was it looks like we're going to have to draining the swamp again. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke, own watchdog agency, Watchdog, just referred him to the Justice Department. He's going down. Bye-bye. There goes another one. But he'll step out as soon as the election is over before he'll let himself really get nailed to the wall. Just wanted to say that because he's a man. I have a book out on Antietam National Battlefield, and I worked with the Park Service for so long. And to see what this guy's doing to the Park Service is making me crazy. Just crazy. Greatest people in the world, the greatest treasure America has. My European friends, every time they come here, they say to me, "You are so lucky." And then they're trashing it and they're fracking like crazy on all public lands. It's really a disgrace. But okay, Heidi Heitkamp. She was in terrible shape before the election last time, and then she wound up winning. It looks like they may have solved some of this problem with the Native American vote. Her brother was on today talking and saying, they're kind of intrigued by their own inside polls. But, he doesn't need to go national to say that, really. But, that could be another shocker. She shocked last time.
Yeah, I mean,
North Dakota, hard to poll.
I mean, yeah, we'll just see. I mean, I think the Kavanaugh thing might have been a wash in the end. Like, even if they were basically for Kavanaugh up there, they probably admired her.
And then it's yesterday's news.
And it's like 2 weeks ago, so it's ancient history.
Yeah, it's like welcome to the world that we're in today. So what races are you concerned about, or what has you most intrigued?
Well, I guess in sort of broad sense, I think the big displacement of Republicans come in kind of affluent suburban districts. I think it will. And is it going to extend to sort of more rural ones like the Devin Nunes district or some of those Kentucky districts, things like that? I'm obviously interested in McCaskill, who I think is still the most vulnerable of all the, even more than Heitkamp, But she's pretty dogged, and she might pull that out. I'm very interested in the other women. She's getting a lot of attention. Rosen in Nevada and Sinema in Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona intrigues me.
I mean, I'm amazed by the degree to which, Republicans have been shameless about saying they, supported, the position on pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, that was how I was going to close. I'm glad you brought it up. You must be reading my mind.
Well, there we go. We'll just go on. It's kind of amazing.
Let's talk about that because I do think it is kind of, in my opinion, it encapsulates everything that's going on with this election. They've been lying like crazy about this. They've been lying about a lot of things, the middle class tax cuts, Republicans, anything that's a bogeyman. But honestly, Matt, pre-existing conditions, there's a vote. What it's in the courts to abolish it. Yeah, you're always better at putting that stuff out there. But let's close on that. So let's gin it up.
I mean, usually, where Democrats and Republicans differ, Republicans have an alternative, like, okay, Democrats are for a stronger, pollution law, and Republicans are for a different kind of thing, or Democrats want to spend this amount on Medicare, and Republicans want to spend that amount. There's like a plausible difference. They can say, well, we think our idea is better. But they really had no idea on pre-existing conditions. Like, there was no Republican bill on pre-existing conditions. I mean, they're kind of making it up.
So don't trust these Republicans, folks. That's how we leave you here, because everyone who says, I am all for pre-existing condition, including Scott Walker, they've done everything they can not to have it and to abolish it. And they want your Medicare, and they want well, there we go. So, parting ways. What do you got to say to me?
Well, it is going to be a fascinating Tuesday night. I mean, a week from today. It's hard to believe. Who knows how many crazy things will happen between now and then.
Oh, God, I hope no more bad ones. As we go off air, we leave you at 6 days, 19 hours, 18 minutes, and 1 second until the 2018 midterm elections. As always, my friend Matt, till next time, love ya.
Till next time, love you.
Okay. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show is a production of Resec, LLC. Be sure to tune in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show at hallicasserjayne.com or listen on your favorite app. New podcasts are posted Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern.